My nest is almost empty, and this bird is ready to soar.
While you drop lies, I'm dropping the beat.
If my closet had skeletons, at least they'd be well dressed.
I'm Greek, and the rest are just a tragedy.
Roses are redheads, violets are blue. Don't come for me, or I'll come for you.
I'm just here to eat, drink, and be merry. I don't go low, I go the distance.
Well, you guys, taglines are in. What do you think? I thought most of them were pretty decent, and I'm loving this season so far. So let's get into the show. Hello and happy Friday. It's me, Virginia. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Living on the Verge podcast. Today we're covering season 6, episode 5 of The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. So let's jump right on in because Lisa thinks that she is going to make things right or get her revenge. I'm not sure, but for whatever reason, the entire episode basically is focusing on Lisa's clarity luncheon. But before we get into the luncheon, let's talk about some other things that happened on this episode. For example, Bronwyn and Todd go to Mateo's for lunch or dinner, and Bronwyn tells us that since last season, her house is totally flipped. Not the decor though, because it still is boasting with colors and crazy decorations. So she's not referring to the decor. She is referring to the dynamic. She says Todd has made significant efforts since last season and that things really changed when they came back to New York. He realized that he could be very gruff with his words, and he's made a significant effort as opposed to her, Bronwyn, who she feels she hasn't changed much at all. And well, that's where things stand. But she thanks Todd for taking in her parents. She says, I know it wasn't part of your plan and you had to change a lot of things, but I really appreciate it. So the story is that her dad is suffering from Alzheimer's and has been suffering for 10 plus years. And his needs have gotten to the place where he needed constant care. So they put him in a memory care unit. In addition to that, Bronwyn's mom had a brain tumor, so she had to have brain surgery. Now, they say that she should fully recover, but it turns out that it looks like she may be staying with Bronwyn and Todd indefinitely. She goes over to Meredith's house and kind of explains what's going on with her dynamic and how Gwen's boyfriend moved in and mom's living there. And then they get into what happened with Lisa, and Todd tells her that, basically what Lisa did to you is unforgivable, and I have no idea why you want to repair a friendship with her. I agree. I don't think Lisa's being a good friend, and I get that you guys need to be able to, mend fences so that you could sign another contract next season, but Bronwyn, not at the risk of your dignity. This girl's treating you like trash. Just let it go. Then we have Angie and her dad. I just love this relationship. Now, in case you don't know, Angie's mother passed away when she was really young, so she was raised by her dad, and they are incredibly close to this day. She shows up with fruit and a flower, and they sit down and chat and kind of reminisce, and then Dad brings out some old pictures of his upbringing, and then he tells the story of when the Germans invaded and burned his city down. He was 7 years old. What a core memory to have to live with your whole life. But Angie is very much entrenched in the Greek culture, so much so that she wants to look into citizenship. And she wants to make sure that she carries on the influence and the culture because she is very, very proud to be Greek. Back at Bronwyn's, she chats with Mom about closing the house. Mom is from Northern California, I believe, and apparently there were still things that they were going through in the house that belonged to Dad. And Bronwyn's mom is, really kind of troubled by making decisions about what to get rid of when her husband isn't there to speak his part. and express his wishes. So there is a great degree of sadness. I personally am dealing with Alzheimer's in my family too, and it's really hard. There's just really no rhyme or reason behind this disease, and some days everything's fine, and other days they don't recognize you. They ask the same questions over and over. They are beginning to lose touch with reality, not understanding the sound of a phone ringing or a doorbell, forgetting to eat. It's all a part of a really terrible disease, and my heart goes out to anybody who has to go through this. Sadly, we all know too many people who have struggled or are struggling with this disease. And so I just pray that one day they find a cure. It's probably too late for my family member, but hopefully they will be able to prevent this from happening to an entire generation of people. And it puzzles me why so many people have this disease. But I digress. I don't even think I planned on sharing that with you, but it just came out, and I told you I would always be honest. So the saddest part about the conversation with Bronwyn's mom is that once they got through, her hurt and her pain about having to close the house and go through Dad's things, then they start to chat about, how Bronwyn really needed help to get her life together. And her mom makes a comment about Todd and reminds her that if it wasn't for Todd, she would have never been where she is. She needed him financially. And you could see the pain and embarrassment in Bronwyn's eyes. But what's really sad is the last comment, which is, you're going to have to go through it with Todd too. That is just an incredibly sad thing to put out there into the universe. And the fact that mom does not have the wherewithal to keep those sorts of things to herself actually gives me a little bit more pause when it comes to Bronwyn. So there's that. Let's move on to Heather. It's a little bit of a lighter scene. She is making a creative office, and she's definitely evolving. Angie shows up, and they're chatting, and they're testing paint samples. And Angie tells Heather that Electra doesn't care, that Angie wants to get her Greek citizenship. And you guys, Heather can relate to this because she's been through it, and I can relate to it. Teen rejection is real. When your kids don't want to hear what you have to say, or when they minimize things that are important to you, that's a real thing. But as a mom who has been through the teenage years 4 times, I can tell you with great confidence that your kids do come back, and eventually they do want to hear your opinion. They don't always use it, but they generally do want to hear it. And I think at the end of the day, our kids really do want to please us. Heather and Angie get into a conversation about the party and how Lisa was behaving. And Heather said that she just went to go powder her nose because she wanted nothing to do with this. Probably the smartest thing she's done all season so far, keeping herself out of that mix, because that was quite the shit show. But then Lisa decides that she is going to take the girls skeet shooting, but only the A team. So the A team consists of Amy, the gal from the Utah party of last week, Mary, Meredith, Heather, and of course Lisa. So they go skeet shooting. They seem to have a good time. And Lisa flat out tells Amy, who was giving her a compliment, saying, I think it's nice of you to invite the other girls, who Lisa refers to as the D list, by the way. And Lisa comes back with, I'm planning on blowing things up at lunch. Skeet shooting's over, and the girls head into the lodge for lunch. And it won't be long before things get crazy. We know that. But when they walk in, the first thing they notice is huge poster boards just on easels, and in huge red letters, it says dismissed. What these are blown up copies of the lawsuits that Whitney was referring to. And Lisa has planned what she is calling a clarity lunch to clear things up. And I guess prove to us that she's really not being sued or that none of this has merit. I agree to a certain degree that when you're in business, people are going to come after you. But I've been in business for 9 years, and knock on wood, no one's come after me. So I don't think it's a given. I think it depends on how you handle your business and what things you do. And what really bothers me about this is that these are allegations of like borrowing money and not paying them back. It really, at the end of the day, doesn't have anything to do with the quality of the product or, some sort of copyright infringement. No, it's just this girl is apparently borrowing money, making promissory notes, allegedly, that she then pretends she didn't make. I don't know. Well, where she went wrong was she stamped dismissed on all of them. And Whitney was quick to point out that the one that had the most allegations is not dismissed. It's currently still an open case. But it seems that Lisa is not willing to concede that fact, because when she is asked point blank, she says it's not dismissed, but we are denying all of the allegations. Well, listen, you could accuse somebody of something and they can deny it all they want. It's up to the judge to decide the truth based on both sides of the story. So the fact that she is so convinced that this lawsuit is going to be dismissed is honestly cause for concern, because I'm just going to say it. I think baby girl Lisa is delusional. So she has not only pictures of the lawsuit, but she has some wild picture of a ship or a cruise ship or a yacht or whatever the hell it is, with she and her hubby on this boat, but it's really, really far away. And in one of the confessionals, Angie says that the reason it's so far away is so that we can't see that it was 30 years ago that she was last on a yacht. LOL. And then there's the picture of she and hubby at the Jazz game, and she claims that they were front row. But of course, Bronwyn steps in to correct that and says, no, those aren't front row seats, because the front row seats are folding chairs. And then the girls are perplexed. Why are they all there? Well, when Heather asked what the purpose of the luncheon is, Lisa proclaims that today is all about me. How is that different from yesterday or tomorrow? I don't know. Anyway, they ask if they can ask some real questions to maybe really clear things up. And Lisa says yes. And then when Whitney asks the question, she says it's none of your fucking business. So what is happening here? I don't even understand the purpose for this meeting. I think Lisa was thinking she was going to vindicate herself. Honestly, it comes across desperate and very troubled to me. I've been saying it all along, but thou protest too much, young lady. And then we have all of the questions coming. Well, we heard that another man's credit card was being used by you. We heard that another man paid off your car. We heard that someone else paid for you to remodel and that you owe him $180,000. And she says it's not yet dismissed, it's just denied. Well, Bronwyn stands up to Lisa, and it seems like Lisa can't handle it. So then she starts with the name dropping about how she's so fabulous that she had so many better things to do with so many more A-list people than to hang out with these housewives. And honestly, it reeks of ill. So the fight starts to escalate and all sorts of things are being cast out. And then Lisa says, do I do this? Yes. Do I do that? Yes. Do I factor my receivables? 100%. I don't know what she's trying to prove by that, but it seems like Angie's not going to let her off very easily. And Lisa says that Angie wants to be Jen Shaw. Angie says, no, I don't. And she says, well, you look like her and you use the same hairdresser. And Angie says, no, I don't. Oh, well, not the same hairdresser, but you use the same girls for eyelashes and brows. And everybody at the table chimes in and says, yeah, we all do because she's the best around. So there went that one, Lisa. And then poor little Heather, she's in the corner saying, I'm just hungry. I want food. And then the poor server, they are in super loud volume argument. And the poor server says, I'm sorry to interrupt. She just wants to take the damn order. I don't know. The order finally gets in, but there's the question about whether or not Meredith spoke up for Lisa on the camping trip. They flash back to a sentence that Meredith said, we should handle this when Lisa's around. So I guess to that degree, she did speak up for her. But for the most part, I think I even said it on this podcast, she was kind of silent. And sometimes your silence speaks volumes. So maybe she should have. Well, then Lisa turns things around on Whitney because of her business that failed and starts talking about all the things that are being alleged on TikTok. And then Whitney very astutely points out the fact that TikToks are not lawsuits. And Whitney says what she needs to say to Lisa to get her to understand that you are trying to compare apples to oranges here. Girl, you are in trouble with the legal system, and I may have just had a failing business, but I'm getting myself out of it. You can't say the same. So maybe instead of spending so much time at Kinko's making posters, Lisa should really dig deep into how to change the narrative, because either she's getting a really crappy edit or we're seeing the real Lisa for the first time. And honestly, I'm here for it because it makes for a really good episode. So far, so good. We're 5 shows in and I'm still loving it. But Whitney goes off as the episode ends and she tosses a napkin. Of course she does. And walks out and we get the big to be continued. So we'll see what happens next week. I don't know if these are all fanciful tales because there are open court documents that are public record that we could all read if we wanted to see just exactly where things are standing. So as far as I'm concerned, this isn't over yet. We'll have to continue to follow this throughout the season, but I kind of hope that we will pivot here real soon because I don't want to spend the rest of the season talking about Lisa and her lawsuits. It's kind of exhausting, especially since we know that there is merit to some of these. I'd be curious to find out whether or not these are settled or dismissed. So to be continued. Okay, that's it for Salt Lake City, but I want to leave you with this little tidbit. Did you guys know or have you heard about the beef between Scheana Shay and Lala Kent, formerly of Vanderpump Rules? The girls are beefing. Okay, here's the deal. A couple of years ago and somewhere around the COVID times, they both bought homes next to each other in Palm Desert. And so they're neighbors because they are like family. Ocean and Summer are dear friends. And, you know, Brock was a good male figure for Lala's kids. And then they even bought a house relatively close to one another in the valley. Do we know if it's for purposes of getting them on the valley? Everybody speculated that it is. We don't know for sure, so I'm not going to spread baseless rumors, but I do know they both bought homes in the valley. And then there's talk about whether or not Scheana will be back for season 3. There was a lot of talk that she and Brock had already been secured for season 3. Then last week on Lala's new podcast, she went into some detail, but nothing specific about why she and Scheana are not doing great right now. And she goes on to say, you know, I love her, we'll fix this, etc. She's upset because I didn't post her book or support her. And it turns out that this morning on Scheana's podcast, she had Alex Baskin on and decided, you know what? I'm tired of all the speculation. I'm just going to tell the truth about what happened. So apparently the issue between Scheana and Lala is deeper than just the book. it stems back to February when Scheana told Lala about Brock's affair ahead of the book because she thought there were going to be excerpts that were going to be released and she wanted to tell her friend firsthand. Well, Lala took that information to Jenna, and Jenna and Scheana are on the outs. So, of course, Jenna told Zach, and God knows who else told who else. But Scheana was very hurt and asked for a moment. I guess that, life started lifing, and Scheana was out on her book tour, and Lala reached out to her, and she didn't respond. And so then it just, snowballed from there. But right now, they're not great, you guys. And even though they both kind of say that they'll still be friends, this morning on Scheana's podcast, it did not sound like she's going to be pursuing a friendship with Lala anytime soon. But the most interesting news came straight out of Alex Baskin's mouth. So Scheana says, were Brock and I offered a part on season 3 of The Valley? Okay, very notable is the fact that Alex didn't just say yes. What he said was, we did have some very serious conversations about moving forward. Apparently, I don't hear the word offer in there. Do you? So then Scheana says, is it true that I am being put on pause because Bravo is mad at me for publishing my book? And Alex Baskin says, yes, it is. So as it stands now, Scheana and Brock will not be on season 3 of The Valley. They have been put on pause, and that's that. Lala is definitely filming, and I don't think that this is going to help them bridge the gap at all. Scheana kind of knows that she is not in the best graces of Bravo right now, but she's going to be at BravoCon, and I'm sure she's still going to be one of the most popular people there. Whether it's good popular or bad popular, I don't know. Sometimes popularity is notoriety. Whatever. I'll stop by and say hi to her because I know her. I've met her a few times, and I have no reason to have beef with her. She didn't do anything to me. But it does make me wonder why she's going. It rings a little thirsty. Sorry, Scheana. I'm loving the new Scheana who speaks up and says what she has on her mind. But I don't know that BravoCon 2025 is going to be the place for you. We'll see. Speaking of BravoCon 2025, you guys, it's coming up, not too far away. And if you are interested in joining us for one of the meetups that we're going to be having over the weekend, then hit me up on my DMs through Instagram, or you could send me an email at livingonthevergepodcast@gmail.com. And once we get a group together, we will release the details when we get a little bit closer to the date about where we will be hanging out. I'm very excited to go to BravoCon and see what we have. Last time I was at BravoCon, I didn't follow Top Chef, and I barely watched any sort of Below Deck. And I knew of Captain Sandy, and I knew of some like Aisha and some of the characters, but I didn't follow the series. And this time I have been following, especially Below Deck Mediterranean, mostly because we just got back from Europe. And honestly, 2 of the places that they are at are ports that we were at as well. So it was pretty familiar. They went to Nice and they went to Barcelona, and it was pretty cool to be like, oh yeah, we were right there. Remember when we walked by this place on the way to this place, and so on and so forth. So that, along with the beautiful food and plating that these chefs come up with, is reason enough for me to want to watch Below Deck. I don't know that I'm going to be reporting on it just because I want to keep some things for myself and just for pleasure. So unless there's a big push for it, I know we just started another season. I just watched the first episode. If you guys really want to hear about it, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to keep this one as my own personal joy and entertainment. So Orange County this week was interesting. And the Real Housewives of Miami reunion episode number 1 left me with my mouth agape So I'll be back on Tuesday to recap that for you. And in the meantime, I hope you have a really good weekend. It's starting to cool down. We're starting to see some fall weather. So get out there and enjoy it. We'll be back soon. Thanks for listening. Until then, I will be here living on the verge.